There's a hell of a lot of evidence about just now that supports the case for sacking Russell Martin. If you're a Rangers supporter who wants Russell Martin sacked as head coach, then I can't really argue with you too vehemently at this point in time, given how poor we are playing on the pitch. But I think you need to be careful about the people who are presenting you with other arguments for getting Russell Martin sacked. Some of them are really stretching it just now. They're extraneous. They just don't apply at all. It might be from news agencies that are looking for clicks and looking for likes. It might be from even more venal sort of kind of, I don't know, media types who want to see trouble in the stands, etc. When was the last time a Rangers game was just about the game and not about Russell Martin and how crazy the Rangers fans were going to go if they didn't get a result, and if this happened and if that happened? It very rarely does. No, I think we need to. I heard the other day Graeme Souness arrived at Ibrox and he just got it. Unlike Russell Martin, Graeme Souness arrived at Ibrox and he just understood what it was all about straight away. No, he didn't. He really didn't. The first big statement Graeme Souness made when he arrived as Rangers manager, because I'm old enough to remember this, and I was highly excited about it, I can tell you. He said beating Celtic is just another 2 points. I don't mean he didn't get it to the extent that he thought it was only 2 points for a win when it was 3 points for a win everywhere else in the world. No, it was actually just 2 points for a win in Scotland back then when Souness arrived. But he says it's beating Celtic is just the same. You just get the same amount of points at the end of that as you do for beating Falkirk, for beating Motherwell, for beating Aberdeen. And about a year later or 10 years later, he came out and he said, "Boy, I got that wrong. Wow, did I get that wrong? I didn't realise just how much momentum it gives the club." Beating Celtic, it just lets them cruise through other league games. Winning the Old Firm game is absolutely massive for proving that you're worthy of winning the league, even just to yourself. So Graeme Souness didn't instinctively get it, but Russell Martin, I mean, the dress code. He's not wearing the suit. Oh my God, he's not wearing the suit. That's just 150 years of tradition. Well, you can just basically up until the time of the tracksuit manager. I think Jock Stein was the first tracksuit manager in Scotland, and he took the Celtic job on permanently for the proper 9 in a row in the European Cup and all that. What was it, 65? I think 1965 he took that one. So you're talking basically a century before that. Everybody wore suits in every walk of life anyway. That wasn't actually involving manual labour. And even if you see the shipyards back in the day, the boys are all wearing suits with like a leather apron in the front of it and a bonnet, instead of a bowler hat. That's how you know they're at their work. Graeme Souness turned up with the biggest Mauser outside Nietzsche and Freddie Mercury, and Rangers had a code of no facial hair. No facial hair at Ibrox, only broken by John Gregg. About the only other guy in the history of Rangers who could probably win a 50-50 with Graeme Souness, because he had John Gregg actually had a scar on his chin, and it was covered and became a talisman in a run to actually winning our only European trophy. That's what made it so symbolic, because it was facial hair. Graeme Souness came in and just trod all over that tradition. The thing is, Russell Martin, he's so arrogant, isn't he? He just thinks he can impose his style of football. He can do things at Rangers that no other manager before him has done. We were begging Graeme Souness to do things at Rangers that no other manager had done, but Graeme Souness came in and wanted to play kind of slow possession, slow build-up football. We managed to deal with that, didn't we, as a support? And then there was that wee tradition of no signing anybody of the Roman Catholic faith. We're no signing Catholics. I mean, that's the tradition at Rangers, and there was literally ones and twos of angry Rangers fans outside the main stand doors, burning their season ticket. In the days where you could burn the season ticket, because you have to melt it these days, and then it's going to be on your phone eventually, so you'd just be self-defeating. When we did sign Maurice Johnson, but Graeme Souness made sure that happened, whether we liked it or not. It's almost like he knew what was better for his eye. But Russell Martin's vain, though. I mean, he's got that hairdo and the beard and the suntan and all that, and he's come out with the fancy specs to try and distract us. And last Friday's press conference with Sky, Graeme Souness got cosmetic surgery and admits he got cosmetic surgery to pin back his ears. He didn't like his big lugs. He was more suntanned than anybody you've ever seen in your life. This is before he even went to Italy wearing the best of suits. Now, Graeme Souness is known for being utterly dapper, to the point of almost fastidious weirdness, in the same way Bill Struth, by the way, was known for that as well. It was bowler hats he was wanting the players to wear. That would be the style. And Bill Struth was there for like half a century anyway, so the styles would be changing. But half the stands at Ibrox, half the punters going to the games have got suntans, they've got the beards, they're doing the gym every day. That's the style these days. But he's been selfish though. Russell Martin has been absolutely selfish. He's been vain. He's been arrogant. He's just doing what he wants to do. Graeme Souness gets sent off in his very first appearance in the league as Rangers player manager. And I was there at Easter Road that day in the away end when it meant the world to us. This was the revolution starting in earnest. He gets himself sent off because he's got to prove that he's the hardest guy in the park. I don't mind making your mark early doors. It's almost like he's looking towards the long term, taking a wee hit early on, lose the game, batter a few folk though, and just lay the marker that we're not going to take any nonsense off anybody. Maybe things going a bit backwards before they go forwards. Graeme Souness then gets red carded the day we win the league. Primarily because Falkirk beat Celtic at Parkhead, then primarily because we would done better than anybody else for the course of the season. But the day we can actually win our first title in 9 years, the whole reason that he's there, he gets himself sent off during the game in which we clinch the league, because again it's a younger guy that needs to sort out because he's Graeme Souness gets sent off the first Old Firm game the following season. When he goes in round about Billy Stark's throat, to the point where Billy Stark gets the boots kicked off him. It's like, my God, that's not even an attack, that's suicide. That's just, please send me off because I want attention, because he hates the fact that he's getting old and he can't handle the young guys. But it's not about making a mark for the team or doing anything for Rangers. And he was doing the same thing at Blackburn Rovers and all that. Players are falling out with him left, right and centre. Didn't want to play for him again because he would go and join in the training. And try to show guys that he was still an absolute head case. Russell Martin voted green, and Souness helped Thatcher round about Ibrox. Maybe that's the thing. Russell Martin talks about Buddhism and looking after folk and helping people, and Graeme Souness said, "I am a soccer mercenary, and the only kind of game, the only team, the only club, the only place I feel an affection for the game is the idea of being Rangers manager." But even that's because he thought it was pure hard to be Rangers manager. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe we need to grow up a wee bit. You're just having a go at the officials in the hotel. Everybody in the media will tell you you're behaving for them. It's performative stuff. You're doing what they want you to do. The hacks. I'll go up to the officials in the hotel and I'll get in their face and I'll get them to. I remember mentioning this before, and folk out there had seen it themselves. Bratislava, we played Inter Bratislava, no, it wasn't Inter Bratislava, the Art Media Bratislava. Peter Zalka became Art Media Bratislava, and they ended up playing it. The Nepo, the National Stadium, basically. I went over for that one. We drew 2 each. Stephen Thompson scoring his only Champions League goal, and that was considered a bad result. We drew 0-0 with them at Ibrox. It ended up being the only Champions League group stage from which we have ever qualified. We progressed. This is under Alec McLeish, but it was going a bit. We're getting a few draws. And it is 10 games in a row that Alec McLeish didn't win, but 4 of them were Champions League draws that saw us through. We drew in Porto, at last minute. Ross McCormack, equaliser stuff. I remember sitting in Bratislava airport after that game. Most of it just got chuffed to have been to Bratislava and been to Nepo, and just iconic stuff. Travelling to watch the Rangers and having a good few drinks with various folk and a bit of chat that day. Result, not what we wanted, but there's a boy sitting, and I just remember there was a wee kind of smoked grass. That's a Freudian slip there, Alec. A wee bit of smoked glass, a kind of partition that was separating the VIP flights and the folk going into first class. And it was, I remember Andy Walker getting a bit of abuse because he was a co-commentator for Sky or STV or whoever it was covering the game live. But Sandy Jardin's there, Rangers royalty. A director with Rangers at that time, and and this guy was just slagging everybody. He's shouting at folk as soon as he saw it, and he's sitting. Nobody's challenging him. I still regret it to this day, but nobody's challenging him because something. It's like when somebody starts shouting psychotically at everybody, you just think, he must be pure hard then. It must be, and you don't really want the hassle, do you? Because you're in a foreign country. Take a passport and you might not have to travel. And it's your fault. Use everybody here. You're part of the problem. You're taking this nonsense for this team only drawing with this mob out here that we've never heard of before. And then they all pass it. Aye, Sandy, Jordan. Fuck you, you're part of the fucking. What are you doing about this? Sandy just kept walking. Just ignored it. I remember a boy sitting next to me, much older than myself, and the fella just saying he's obviously never saw Sandy Jordan playing then. Just obviously he's not. The guy was older than me. The guy was like middle-aged. The fella was doing all the shouting. And the thing was, I remember after all that nonsense, we ended up in the canteen at the airport. We had to go and once we checked in, we went and get something to eat for this. It was a 24-hour job. Just the in and out job, the SAS job, where you fly in the morning and fly back out at kind of 1 a.m. back to Glasgow. In the canteen, and there's fellas, guys, thank God, behind the counter, Slovakian fellas, serving up all the food and what have you. And I was like, they're speaking perfect English. And I remember this guy just going, what's that? They're pointing at a roll or something like that. What's that? And the guy said, oh, that's a bit of lettuce and a certain kind of cheese and blah, 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 you know. What's that? Oh, that's the tuna, just, all that. That was it. I thought, you're just like that with everything, aren't you? You're just like that with everything in life. You know, it's no a disgrace, it's no a humiliation. Just now, John Gregg, didn't he win? Was it his 7th league game of the season, 78, 79? I forgot until it was mentioned earlier. I've been doing this stat as well since it became a thing, since Russell Martin started so poorly in the league, as was expected from everything everybody was telling us about his MO, but never mind. That doesn't create headlines, that doesn't get folk hysterical, and hysteria sells just now. John Gregg, it was his 7th game, and I was saying we did win both cups that season and took the league title race down to a kind of 3rd game from the end of the season. Basically, it was a title decider at Parkhead against Celtic, which we lost. And I mentioned that we got to the quarterfinals of the European Cup. I forgot to actually, just kind of bulk that out a bit by saying that was the run in which we beat Juventus. We put out the Juventus team that would basically win the World Cup for Italy. 3 years later, we put out Juventus, and that we're finishing 3rd, 4th, and 5th in the league. After that, that was getting to be a crisis. You know, we're rebuilding the stadium at that time as well. Just like we're rebuilding the entire infrastructure of the club just now. There's a new director. Even if it is Kevin Thelwell's son, there's a new director arriving like every 5 minutes at Ibrox still just now as we keep trying to build out the infrastructure. It's no a disaster. It's no a disgrace. It's no horrendous. It's just a bit shite watching Rangers being so pissed just now. So how you doing, folks? How are you doing? This is your fat egg. It really feels like they're going to sack him in the international break, doesn't it? Rangers at Brockville, right in the centre of Grangemouth or Larber or Stirling, whatever, amongst the houses with the packed wee terraces behind each goal and the tiny coo shed down the one side, opposite the quaint main stand with Jim Jeffries, Alec Tottenham, John Lambie in the home dugout and Basil Bowley scoring. That wee windy in the gable end of the house overlooking the corner flag and Mark Warburton's Rangers going 2-0 up in the plastic and playing like Pep's Barcelona on a Friday night, then losing 3-2 under the power plant lights and chimneys that stopped them building a stand opposite that main stand, which is clearly a mini version of the BT main stand at Hampden. Here we go, 2 in a row, either league wins or setbacks. Preview pod coming to you in association with Gersnet. Check out last night's Gersnet preview pods as well, 9 o'clock Friday night, and it was Craig and it was Brian, and I've not had a chance to watch it yet, but I'm sure it'll be absolutely magnificent. That's the preview pod I'll be getting onto right after this. I'm coming to you in association with Gersnet, and I'm also coming to you in association with folk who are famous for one thing, but they've actually got another kind of a deeper skill that's more kind of sophisticated and more kind of hipster genre and more intellectual, which is ironic for Patricia Routledge, who died, I think, just yesterday. Patricia Routledge, because Hyacinth Bouquet would actually have loved to have been somebody who won like a Tony Award, you know, for her work on Broadway, or somebody who'd appeared in West End plays, won an Olivier Award. You know, somebody who'd actually appeared in really posh intellectual plays on BBC Two, as Patricia Routledge did when she was just training at the Old Vic and on Broadway and on the West End and in the Alan Bennett's Talking Head series. Not Robert Graves, who wrote I, Claudius, that became the TV series. It was famous for being all kind of lots of pervy stuff going on. Kind of blood and gore and sex and all that kind of stuff on, I think it was a Thursday night it used to be when I was a kid at the time. It was one of the things that was on, you could hear it on in the living room, you know, the blood and the gore, no I, Claudius. But the book that it was based on, Robert Graves, he's most famous for that. But he just wrote it to make some money. Robert Graves, read about him, read about his life, survived the First World War, what a sex life he had as well, boys, women, everything, into I mean grown, but when he was a wee boy, but they all did that at Eton. Anyway, but it's really, but he was like a classicist, a poet. He's also famous for Goodbye to All That, a kind of memoir, Goodbye to All That, which also made him a lot of money. It was just to finance his life as studying Greek mythology. He was a Celticist as well, maybe put you off him, a Celticist. He loved Celtic mythology and studying old Scotland and Ireland back in the day, that kind of thing as well. But he was a poet more than anything else. He wrote about 140 books and he's famous for 2. The other ones are a lot deeper, a lot more intellectual. Like Bill Oddie, that's an ornithologist, a world-leading ornithologist, but also a goodie, yum. I, of course, I'm famous as Scotland's songbird, because my golden voice, but I'm actually much more interested in podding about the singing is just to bring in the money that finances me doing these pods about the mighty Glasgow Rangers. Hitler, he wanted to be a painter, but he just take a wee dabble in politics, and that's all folk remember him for. Old Adolf, they're actually Austrian as well. Folk think he was German. That's really weird. Charles Bukowski, famous has been a booze bag, actually a bit of a novelist and a bit of a poet. And then there's Russell Martin, who's best known for having good hair and no wearing a suit and being a vegan, but actually wants to be remembered as somebody who had a shit upbringing and overcame it, and wants to put something back by helping others. And every now and then he wants to be remembered probably as a good coach as well. He likes coaching football teams. How you doing, folks? My name's Alec Anderson. Move closer, set my mind on fire. You thought I was going to sing the other move closer. Taking over. The world seems so alive, the world seems so alive. She slips into the night, and she is gone to set the score. Gone into the town, rain shining in her eyes. Her brother started school again today. I thought to pass the time, to occupy my mind while I'm waiting for her. Hi folks, my name is Alec Anderson. Thank you so much for joining me and giving this your time. Don't worry, there's an international break coming up. That means a break for your lugs as well. I'm here to talk to you a bit more of the fallout. We'll cover a bit more of the fallout from what happened in Graz the other night, or what didn't happen. Check out my post-match reaction, though, for the full kind of detailed, really straight, analytical coverage of that one. My post-match reaction pod to the defeat in Graz. 2-1 it was, in case you weren't watching it. And we look forward to what may be Russell Martin's last game as Rangers manager. This is your Rangers at Falkirk preview pod. You see some of the players, some of the Sturm Graz players on it when they celebrated that first goal. Because at the time you're just sitting there thinking, oh my God, what just happened there? You see it, but you're not really concentrating on it. I watched the goal back, and they celebrate with one guy sits on the other guy's knee. They taking the piss out of Kevin Thelwell, getting his boy in, sitting daddy's knee. That's just, it's brutal. Not very enjoyable these days. Anyway, Falkirk. The thing about Falkirk, no, mess with the deal. We better mess with the Nemo me Chesit impunity. Well done, Cutty Sut. The deals of Falkirk rather than the Bairns of. I forget the expression, but it's the Bairns. We're going to play the Bairns. I want Andy Scott, the Kelpies, the sculptor of the Kelpies, also the sculptor of the Ibrox Memorial in the shape of John Gregg. Dunfermline and Falkirk, they hate each other. They got a total rivalry going on, Dunfermline and Falkirk. I've got a comfy years or so. The Kilmarnock United thing was a bit of noise in the background for me, and obviously my main focus was the Old Firm rivalry, but the Falkirk Dunfermline thing, a dark Scottish secret really. But it's quite amazing. Falkirk have won the Scottish Cup twice, 1913, 1957. Dunfermline have won the Scottish Cup twice, 1961, 1968. But neither of them have won the League Cup, and neither of them have won the league. Now, Dunfermline got what about the Russell Martin thing, Alec? Russell Martin's doing our nuts in. There's folk wanting to strangle directors. Why not? No, we're just going to talk. It's Rangers Falkirk, Rangers against Falkirk. That's that we're here to preview. I find it really interesting because Dunfermline got a much better record in Europe than Falkirk. They've got the semi-finals of the Cup Winners' Cup. Lots of good runs in the Fairs Cup back. They've got the semi-finals of the Cup Winners' Cup in '69, losing to Slovan Bratislava. I know that's their ground. It was hosting Armida Bratislava, and that guy was in Bratislava giving it Sandy Jardine. That guy who won the Cup Winners' Cup with Rangers. It's just quite amazing how these things come together. But Falkirk have only had one European game, and they're going to be playing on tomorrow. But they played their first European game, their only home match in European competition, where they beat Vaduz of Liechtenstein by 1-0. But then after extra time, they lost 2-0 in the sentence to the UEFA Cup kind of qualifying rounds. Europa League qualifying rounds. It would be the first season of the Europa League, wouldn't it be? Because it would be 2000. Because we beat them in the Scottish Cup final in 2009. Nacho Novo turn, ping, top corner, great goal. That's Falkirk ended up. They get yeah. They went into that was 2009 Scottish Cup final, wasn't it? Yeah, 2009 Scottish Cup final. So they went into the Europa League the following season, into the qualifiers, and they lost away to Vaduz of Liechtenstein. I mean, they're effectively a Swiss club, but there's no Liechtenstein league. That's the thing. Coming out of Europe to somebody who they don't even have a league system. The country that Vaduz come from. So that's unfortunate. So Dunfermline's European record far, and they've played in Europe recently as well, comparatively recently in the colour television days, Dunfermline. But was it Häcken of Sweden? Where I think, is that where Big Hollander's playing just now? I like you're going to have to face up to the Russell Martin stuff. You're going to have to face up to the Russell Martin stuff. Stop with the tangents. But Falkirk, far inferior European record to Dunfermline. But I mean, the best Dunfermline have ever done in the league was finishing third on two different occasions in the 60s in the top flight. Whereas Falkirk, the two best, twice they finished second in the league, and that was in the 1910s, I think. The 1910s came within a point of winning the title from Celtic. I mean, Celtic were winning it both times. Falkirk won it, and Falkirk finished second, and Celtic won it both times. Oh no, didn't he? No, because Kilmarnock won it. It was 65. When the whole Kilmarnock Hearts thing. I'll not keep you long. The Kilmarnock Hearts thing at 65, where Kilmarnock, Willie Waddle, there you go, as a Rangers link. Willie Waddle is Kilmarnock manager when they go and they win the title at Tynecastle in 65. The two of them locked on points or whatever. No, Kilmarnock were 2 points behind Hearts, which meant they could only finish in level points, but to win it was goal average in those days as opposed to goal difference. And they had to win by 2-0 Kilmarnock, and they did. They won 2-0 exactly, and that was them. They just won the league by the smallest margin ever. But a point behind the two of them was Dunfermline. I still haven't found out for anybody what were Dunfermline doing that day. Who were they playing? So if that team, if Hearts and Kelly had, I don't know, because they've still been a point behind Hearts, but where did it go wrong for Dunfermline? How close did they actually come to winning the title that season? You don't hear a lot about Dunfermline nearly winning the actual title in Scotland, but there they are. And then when they finished third in 1968, I think it would be Celtic that won the league that season. I think it's really kind of comparative, the thing. But you want to talk about Russell Martin? We're talking about it's a Falkirk preview pod here. So Falkirk back in the top flight for the first time in 15 years. We haven't played them competitively since we beat them 4-0 in the League Cup in 55 season 2020-2021. We beat them 4-0 at Westfield at the Falkirk Stadium, where we're going. The stadium that has hosted European football for one match. Has anybody else moved the game there? I went to see Preston North End playing at Falkirk. I've seen Rangers playing at Westfield. I've been at Brockville and that. I've seen Brockville. I've seen Rangers at Brockville, and I've seen the last match played at Brockville 2 seasons in the trot because of all the SPL. You've got to have 6,000 seats to get. No, Falkirk no getting promoted and stuff like that. That's crisis. That's real bad stuff. That's stuff you should be getting up and strangling directors about in the middle of a hotel lobby. But went to Westfield myself when Preston North End were playing, because I'd never seen Preston North End. What is this got to Deviating? Well, Preston North End, actually, is the first club Rangers ever played at Ibrox. Is it this Ibrox or the previous? I think it may be this Ibrox. No, we slightly moved Ibrox back in 1890 odds, whenever it was, but we slightly moved the site of it. I think it was Preston North End that we played. That was it, and they beat us 8-1 at Ibrox, and the game was still going on. We just got in the park and rioted to stop it getting any worse. And it was like, okay, right, we'll let them. I'm pretty sure it was the first game played at Ibrox, and if not, it's Scott Simon. You get Scott Simon. Obviously, he was manager of Preston North End before. I think he took him to the FA Cup final before he became manager of Rangers, and did all sorts of great things with Rangers. And Scott Simon was the East Fife manager. So Falkirk, who've played in the Scottish Cup, Falkirk have played in the Scottish Cup final at Ibrox, at Parkhead, and at Hampden. Falkirk have beaten Kilmarnock in the Scottish Cup final after a replay in 1957, and have lost to Kilmarnock in the Scottish Cup final at Ibrox 1997. Quite interesting. But there's also the Fife thing. No, but they hate Dunfermline, Falkirk, Dunfermline, big rivalry. But they've lost to East Fife. Falkirk have lost to East Fife in their only League Cup final, 47-48 season, I think it was. And they beat Raith Rovers in 1913 in their first ever Scottish Cup final. That was at Parkhead. So that's just quite interesting. They've never played Dunfermline in a major final, and that's their big derby rivals. And Scott Simon was the manager of East Fife when they beat Falkirk in the League Cup final. And Jerry Dawson, Rangers legend, was in goals when he was in goals for Falkirk. And in the replay, he went to a replay, and Falkirk East Fife beat Falkirk 4-1. So 4 goals got put past Jerry Dawson. But when Scott Simon left East Fife to go and become manager of Preston North End, Jerry Dawson left Falkirk and became manager of East Fife. I'm pretty sure. I double check that if I was you. I get a bit mixed up with these things, but it's all really interesting. So Preston North End, I saw them. The Invincibles. I like to see all the teams that are champions of England. I haven't seen Leicester City. I've never seen Leicester City live, and who else? There's another one at Portsmouth. I've never seen Portsmouth. 2 teams that have been champions of England. The only 2 clubs that have been champions of England I've not seen in the flesh. There's probably another one I've forgotten about, but I'm getting there. So we haven't played Falkirk competitively since we beat them 4-0 during 55 season, the first round of the League Cup. In the first round of the Scottish Cup, we beat Cove Rangers 4-0. We went out of both those competitions to a St Johnstone and St Mirren, who had won the League Cup a bit earlier. A couple of years before, we played them in the League Cup in the 55 season, and St Johnstone, who'd won the Scottish Cup in 2014, and we won it again. I'm taking it too far. I'm just really not wanting to talk about the things. Top flight, first time back in the top flight for 15 years, Falkirk. So we haven't played them in the top flight since, I think it's January 2010. January 2010, we beat them 3-0 at Ibrox, but December 2009 is the last time we played them in the top flight at Falkirk at Westfield, and we beat them 3-1. I think 2 Chris Boyd goals and Kenny Miller. I don't know who scored for Falkirk, but the last time we lost to Falkirk in the top flight, it was December 2006. Almost 20 years ago. Paul Le Guen was the manager. I think the weather was like it was today. I hope everybody's all right with Storm Amy. It's been absolutely brutal. I sat there at 2 o'clock in the morning. No drink last night. Maybe that was a problem, but I was lying there. I could hear every slate rattling. Everything. The wind was absolutely brutal. So I hope everybody survived. But I think the weather was a bit brutal that day. We lost 1-0 to a Mark Twaddle goal. Mark Twaddle, who'd signed, he's a Rangers youth, and had signed for Falkirk. He scored the only goal of the game that day. He played up for Irvine Meadow, Mark Twaddle. According to Wikipedia, he still is playing for Irvine Meadow, but I don't know if that's the case. But I think that was that was nearly 2 decades ago. And before that, we hadn't lost to Falkirk in the league for like 30 years. So we've only lost once to Falkirk in the league in 50 years, really. But we instinctively don't feel that's the case, do we? Because, of course, we lost twice to Falkirk in the Championship under Mark Warburton. Both our away games to Falkirk. And the last time we played them in any kind of league fixture was at Westfield, was at the Falkirk Stadium, where we're playing tomorrow, when we were 2-0 up after about 9 minutes, and we were playing absolutely scintillating. It was a Friday night live game. I remember I'm watching the telly. It was brilliant. We were absolutely tremendous, and it was getting towards the end when we started really slipping up the league. We'd won it almost too early, and we're losing all momentum, and we just kept conceding late goals, late equalisers. And we're supposed to win the league at Starts Park, and then they equalised in the injury time to stop us winning the title there. And of course, we know what happened eventually in the Scottish Cup final. But we were 2-0 up, and we're 2-0 up with 18 minutes to go, and we lose 3-2. So it's exactly that part of the world. I know Alloa isn't in Stirlingshire or anything like that, but I remember that was probably the previous season. We're 2-0 up with 18 minutes to go when we ended up losing 3-2 to Alloa under Ali the previous season. That was us losing under Warburton at Westfield after being 2-0 up with 18 minutes to go. So hopefully there's no repeat of any of that kind of stuff tomorrow. So it's 9 years, no 19 years since Falkirk beat us in a league game, just a different league. But it only has to be a draw on Sunday for it to be a bit of a disaster for us, like it was when we drew with them home and away in the 2014-15 Championship the season before. I think if we win 5-0 more, we might be able to go top of the league. Depends on other results, but I haven't seen what's happened so far today. Maybe so not top of the league. Oh my God! I know there's been positive, Alec, and there's just been bloody delusional. You do need a drink, son. To go third, and going third would feel like going top of the league for Rangers just now, wouldn't it? Maybe you've got a point about Russell Martin. Also, one more. Alec, when are you going to start talking about Russell Martin? The hate for Russell Martin. Come on, when are we going to get into this? It's coming. Just let me kind of warm up to it, would you? Andreas Velička. I think the last time I saw Rangers, it's probably maybe the only time I saw it. I think I've seen us there twice. I remember Roy Carroll warming up, because when you go into the away end at Falkirk, you're just walking along the ground. You're ground level, and you're just the players are just standing on the other side. In fact, Nacho Novo was sitting behind us, and Carlos Cuellar. The two of them weren't playing, and they were sitting behind us in the stand. And I remember Carlos Cuellar gets up at one point to go for a pee or whatever, and there's a guy a couple of rows in front of me. He just goes, Carlos. So he turned around and he goes, "Pie and a Bovril, please, Carlos, Jason, and whatever you want yourself." It was quite, it was funny. It was the banter. It was happy days. But it wasn't really happy days because we had just lost. Our previous game was losing a European match, and everybody being very unhappy. We'd just lost to Souness in Lithuania, which put us out of Europe in our first tie since the European final that we played in Manchester. Yin and yang, ups and downs. These things go back and forwards. And that day, the only goal of the game was scored by Andrius Velička. We won 1-0. Our only goal scored by a Lithuanian. No Austrians in the team tomorrow. I think we've only ever had one Austrian that played for us. It was a long, long time ago. But hopefully it's that kind of thing of Rangers. Horrific fallout from a European defeat, and we can salve it with a wee win at Falkirk in our following match. They're currently second bottom of the table, Falkirk, after a second straight promotion that got them back into top flight this year under John McGlynn. Who knows his stuff, John McGlynn? Great sir. Is it Wraith Rovers he was at as well as Hearts, John McGlynn? But a proper football man. He is. They've conceded more goals than anybody. They're average of 2 goals a game. They're conceding the 6 games they've played so far. They've conceded 12 goals. They took a 3-0 down at Tynecastle last week, where John McGlynn is saying it was kind of down to them, but also Hearts were in great form. So I was just covering himself or whatever. But no midweek game from them, I suppose. Falkirk have had a rest since Tynecastle last Saturday. They put in their poorest performance, they said, of the season so far last week. They have won one game, had a few draws. They drew both their games in the league. The 2 points they got from draws both came with 2 each draws at home to both the Hibs, Dundee Hibs, and Edinburgh Hibs, 2 each draws. Their only win of the season was beating Aberdeen in the league. That is, they also obviously they kind of sailed through their League Cup group before going out 4-1 to Celtic. I think the last 16 at Parkhead. That would be the last 16, and their only win was against Aberdeen at Pittodrie. They beat 10-man Aberdeen at Pittodrie. They scored the goal after Aberdeen had gone down to 10 men, and that's the only time they've led in any of their 6 league matches this season. They've been behind in the 2 each draw. They kept coming back from behind, twice against Dundee United and then from 2-0 down against Hibs. So, but they have Scott Arfield. All bow. Mr. Saturday Night, I'm talking to you on a Saturday night. Scott Arfield, who will be 37. His shirt number, and we know that it was Falkirk. What things that happened at Falkirk that gave him that shirt number, Scott Arfield. So we've got 2 Canadian internationals when we're going head to head tomorrow. One of the old generation, one of the new generation, with Derek Cornelius and Scotty Arfield. But I think he's been coming off the bench mostly recently at Scott, but he arrived there with a bang, scoring a few really important goals for them, and he's just a flipping legend, and I absolutely love him to pieces. And talking about League Cup finals and Scottish Cup, Scotty Arfield scored for us in a League Cup semi-final and a Scottish Cup semi-final, and he just scored so many other goals and just did so many other things, and he's just, I actually love him, and I just love Scott Arfield, and that's all there is to it. So, is that all there is to be said? I think I might. There's something else surely I could say about Dunfermline, Falkirk, and their rivalry, and I'm just going to have to talk about it. You're going to have to talk about Russell Martin. No, I don't actually. Snagging items. I always do snagging items, don't I? And things I got wrong in my previous podcast, and I've already got a few wrong in this one. You'll know that. But for example, I said Derek Cornelius wins corners. He wins a lot of corners for us, and that makes him sound like a winger, who's a skinny wee winger who's hitting the byline, and it's getting blocked and whatever. He's won as a corner. And I meant, and to be fair, he was getting towards it. He did hit the byline at one point the other night when we played him left back. And the second, he was very much left wing back. Big Derek, cracking player. But what I would mean was when we're putting corners into the opposition box, he's the first one onto it. He wins the ball in the air or from a flick on from John Suter. It's a weapon we could use. But sorry, but that was basically a mistake. And Heat, the mirroring effect. Heat. I was talking about the scene, Michael Mann's 1995 LA crime saga, Heat. I mentioned it a couple of pods before, but I was talking about the the precious metals depository scene the other night, I felt as if it was very pertinent. I don't know if I proved that or not. Very pertinent to what was going on in Europe in general for Scottish clubs, never mind just Rangers and Graz. But I forgot to specify the most important part probably of that whole scene, where Al Pacino's Vincent Hanna is watching on the monitor as they spy on the kind of the raid, the highline burglary that is going on in the precious metals depository across the road. The police are spying on it. Is the bit with the because the whole thing about Heat's very meta in that it's the first time Al Pacino and Robert De Niro had acted opposite each other in a film. And it's like, who's going to be the best? No, it's who's the best criminal and who's the best cop. They're the best criminal and the best cop, but who's going to come out on top is the kind of story. And Heat, or like basically the main story, is how they both don't have a life really, except that they know each other better than they know even their own partners, but this is a big thing, and it's like, but it's also De Niro and Pacino, the best actors of their generation, and which one's the best? Who's going to be best in this film? And of course, like great actors, they both just make sure that the film is absolutely the best. But there's this: they had appeared together in Godfather 2. Technically, the prolepsis thing. They're going back and forth in time, with De Niro playing young Vito Corleone, the father of Michael Corleone, played by Al Pacino. And there's one of the bits where the camera would just fade out of the present and fade from the past and fade back into the present. And it was De Niro and Pacino were on screen at the same time together, but they weren't actually acting each other. Well, they're building up the tension of when's this top cop going to meet this top robber and how's it all going to go down. But it's also when's Al Pacino and Robert to mirror that, to get the mirror effect, not to build up the tension for the audience. When is Pacino and De Niro going to meet in a scene, and they're going to talk, and almost like to ratchet up the tension, and to comment on the mirroring effect, to comment on the two sides of the same coin effect, and to speak about the only previous time they appeared in film together. There is a point, a shot, a scene within the scene where when Neil Macaulay, the De Niro character, realises he hears the noise coming from across the road and realises they're probably being watched. And he's in the recesses, he's skulking about in the recesses like a master criminal, just hiding from the light almost. And he hears this noise, and they've got the cops have got the infrared cameras on him, so it's not like a normal camera. So you're looking at the screen, you're watching this in the cinema, you're looking at the screen, and you're behind Al Pacino, who's sitting in colour, and he's got the full, Dante Spinotti kind of cinematography going full tilt on him. But he's sitting kind of slightly to his back to you. You've got his head, but his head is looking at another screen. It's looking at a monitor in the back of the truck. And half of the screen you're looking at is taken up by Al Pacino's head, and the other half is the rest of the monitor, and you can't see, but out of the shadows just comes forward Robert De Niro playing Neil Macaulay, and because it's infrared stuff, he's a negative. It's a kind of monochromatic. It's kind of blue and grey, but it's not. It's a heat-seeking, night light stuff, and he just comes out like that, and both their heads are on the screen at the same time. They're not talking to each other. They can't even. It's phenomenal, and it's a kind of he's in the wrong side of the law. He's a negative image. He's the yang to the yin of Al Pacino, and you're the young, and so am I watching it. It's absolutely fantastic. But he's the negative version. He's an inversion. It's criminal. Not to have pointed that out to you. But in this yin to the yang thing, it's Russell Martin in Europe compared to last season. Russell Martin has, we were brilliant in Europe last season, but crap in the league. Still crap in the league this season, but so many of us attributed that to the fact we were so good in Europe. Stop being great in Europe. I hate it, because it means we're not winning the league. Absolute nonsense, but you've got half of your wish this season. This is what we're doing in Europe. We've played Graz teams 4 times now, and Viennese teams 4 times, but in European matches, in terms of actual matches, we've played 4 times against teams from Vienna, and I'm talking in a preview pod about how much I love Vienna and how Viennese football is brilliant, and I just don't have any time for Graz and Salzburg and Innsbruck and all these kind of wee kind of rubbish places. But it's all about Vienna for me. But it's 4 times we've played teams, the same amount of times teams for Graz Rangers have played in Europe as it is teams, and it's only 1 team for Vienna. We've played 4 matches against Rapid Vienna, all of them against Rapid Vienna, and we've now played 4 times against teams for Graz. And snagging item 3A, if you like, Salzburg. I've been there as well, but actually been to Salzburg as well as Vienna, and they've only got the Sound of Music, really, but that's still better than, I was talking about Schwarzenegger compared to Arnold Schwarzenegger films been absolutely awful, and the Sound of Music still better than Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger used to sponsor the. Have you seen Highlander was on last night, and it's the McLeods against the Murdochs, is the big fight at the beginning. It's the Bloods against the Crips. It's blue against this kind of horrible blue tartan against this horrible naff red tartan. It's the Bloods against the Crips, and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger authorised the execution of the guy who founded the Crips. And that's when they stopped naming the stadium after him in Graz. But is Graz, I'm thinking, is that the only city to provide Rangers with a different single time, one-off game European opponent? We played Sturm Graz the other night, obviously, in this new format of the Europa League. 36 teams now, you play 4 away from home only, you play 4 at home only. I know we played Sturm Graz before, in the home and away, in the old Champions League format, but we also played Grazer AK, the other team who uses that stadium, in the 2006-2007 UEFA Cup group stage under Paul Le Guin. And I can't remember them. Auxerre, 2 times we were in that old UEFA Cup 5-team group where you only played 2 teams away and 2 teams at home. 2005 to about 2010, I think they ran that format in the UEFA Cup. And we played Auxerre in both of them, but it's like Maccabi Haifa and Livorno, Partizan Belgrade. But we played Grazer AK at Ibrox. We beat them 3-0. I was at that one. And that's just played Sturm Graz. I don't know why this is a thing. I just find this kind of interesting. I know you usually don't. I like that thing about the axe. Was that just a great metaphor? Talking my axe story that I told the other night, that I lost my wee axe out in the garden. I was trying to chop down a tree, and it's a genius metaphor about Rangers having no cutting edge, or Rangers needing to get a grip, because it really wasn't. No, it was. There really is a B&Q axe lost in a bush out there. Oh, Martin's a fanny, and Rangers need to give him the chop. No, and it's just the owners don't know how to wield the axe. Is that what you're saying? I'm like, no, I literally kind of had a wee handheld axe out there. I can't hold on to it, and it come flying out of my hand. So you were caught limp-wristedly playing with a tool. I like, no, I think that's totally kind of getting out of hand, guys. Would you just, and it come off in your hand? We're not talking about that anymore. It wasn't a metaphor anyway. I literally just look. That's it. So here come the Michael Gove army. Let's just get into the folk here to tell you common sense beats expertise every day of the week. The intelligence and analysis and context and humanity and compassion are weak, woke, and absolutely wanky, and they know the real world because they live in it, and you can't, because you've no seen stuff that what's happening to real people. And they love the ability to reduce and simplify everything to the obvious and stuff that they can understand, because of course that's they love Rangers more, don't they? They love Rangers more than you. They love Rangers like this. Most of us. Sorry, it sounds a bit bitter. I'm not going to say what I'm wanting to say, but I feel as if there's been the past few days. A certain personality type has come to the fore that loves it when things are really bleak, so they can just go, end of, that's it, tell you, he's got to go, blah, blah, blah. And that's just, I'm a bit kind of against that way of thinking, and I'm putting thinking in inverted commas, a big sarcastic in inverted commas. But the problem there is that means that a lot of you guys out there, because I know you all think I'm a clinical, scientifically objective, professional, professorial, actually a genius who's kind of greater understanding of all things, leads to me being kind of permanently cold, calculated, almost inhumanly unemotive. You say, Alec, you're so deep, brainy, thin, hairy, and stylish, very muscular as well, with an angelic singing voice. How can you possibly relate to us, the common man? And I hear you. I'm not completely deaf to your cries there. We lead lives of perpetual desperation. I know you do, folks. I know. You cannot understand how much we need Rangers to win to brighten up our dull existences. How can you, from up there in your ivory tower of my Gers silver level loyalty, in the two different editions of Uli Hess Lichtenberger's Tor, a couple of German books with football in the German language. I don't understand German. For your pretentious kind of Scandinavian shelving system. How can you understand how much we need Rangers to win? We don't have time for plans and stuff like that. We don't have time for, oh, got to go backwards before you can go forwards. And I think you're really being quite snooty and snobby towards us, the Brexiteering common people, when you say it's not that bad, going to hang on, get a bit of context, be careful what you wish for. Okay, right, I get it. I can see why you might doubt me, especially in respect of the reference to the facts that I is speaking kind of fantastically, fancifully in a way that goes above your sad wee baldy heads. But so I'll ask you to imagine a scene, perhaps. I might deviate from my normal tone. I'm going to see if I can, because luckily I'm also a massive fat thespian as well. I never really had it in my blood. Theatrical zeal in the veins. That's what's so important, isn't it? So I'll ask you to picture a scene, right, in old Glasgow town, or something a scene you'll understand, being a kind of common person. Picture a scene in old Glasgow town, or Rab C. Nesbitt is on the telly, and the dogs fae Perry Bar are on the other telly, and I've got a kind of flagon of frothy Strathclyde brewery, like a Peroni. I've got a Peroni in one hand, an LS tracksuit is my LSE tracksuit. That's my outfit of choice. My XL Bully Dog Brexit is in repose by my New Balance ensconced feet, lovingly guarding my latest Brittany in a St George's Cross chainmail in her wee Burberry baby carrier, and above the hubbub of the Russell Martin chatter, I offer up the opinion of the common man. So if you just imagine that scene as you're walking. Oh, shut it! Send back the small boats and listen to me. Right. John Gregg, hard as nails. John Gregg, hard as nails. He could play a bit of Fitbit as well, John Gregg in his day, but as a player, he would go out and nail the most talented player in the other team, and he would nail the hard man in the other team. He would take on all comers. Hard, isn't it? But when he was manager, really pretty football Rangers played. Rangers played really delicate, tippy-tappy at times, almost really exciting football. Couldn't win as the league, came very close, particularly his first season. Only really in his first season in charge as manager, John Gregg, but as mentioned before, beat Juventus in the old European Cup, and unlucky to get to Cologne, beat PSV Eindhoven, then he's becoming the first opposition manager ever to win a European tie and win a European game, and to beat PSV Eindhoven in the Philips Stadium. Beat them. First time it had ever been done, and John Gregg was the man to do that. His manager, we played some really beautiful football there. And Brian Clough, shut it, Brian Clough is, and Brian Clough. No, Davey, shut up, listen to what I'm saying. Let me finish my point. Brian Clough, fantastic striker, deadly striker, record rate of goal scoring from Brian Clough. Middlesbrough, Sunderland, and that he played for. As a manager, yes, Nottingham Forest had great attacking players and could play really exciting football, but they won 2 successive European Cups by winning both finals by a goal to nil. Larry Lloyd, Kenny Burns, his bully boy centre-halves were more important to that team probably than maybe even John Robertson. Scored a winner on got the assist in both the European Cup finals, maybe no, but than Trevor Francis. They're more important than some of the most talented attacking players they had. It was just the bulwark. He knew how to keep a clean sheet all the way to winning the European Cup and retaining it, did Brian Clough, the ace striker. And the point I'm trying to make is that managers do teams the opposite. They do their teams that they manage the opposite of how they were as players. It's almost like they can't teach the players what they already know. You know what I mean? You know how, I know how to do a reverse double forecast for the full card at Shawfield, but your Waynes might not be able to teach them. You don't understand how they kind of just get down there and cover all the doubles. And at the bookie, at Ladbrokes and that, you battle my boot when they get it wrong and that, but because you don't take the time to teach them, because you just know it instinctively. And that's what I'm trying to say is Rangers can't defend just now because they're managed by a defender. You know what I'm saying? That's a theory that I definitely hold. So I can do it. I can do barroom bullshit theorising. That's what I'm thinking just now. It's always the same, and it isn't always the same by any manner of means whatsoever. And the 2 examples I've taken come from teams that played Cologne in the 1978-79 European Cup. That's it. That's the only examples I can think of. But I think Russell Martin probably just thinks, I can defend. I know how to clear the ball out the air, or I know how to win the ball in the air. I know how to clear it out the penalty box when it comes swinging in. How can you not do that? So maybe that's the mentality. Did you see the interview he had today with it was on. I saw it today. I think it might have been yesterday. It wasn't Luke Shanley. It was somebody else for Sky. He was interviewing him again. It's the indoor pitch at Auchenhowie. But after the cruelty of him being placed with that picture of himself on the banner the other night in Graz, the away support, I've got the big picture of him, his face on it with the red cross through it. It was right next to the Austrian TV director. Just managed to frame it so it was right next to him. They had him the day. It's obviously Rangers Football Club was in a big sign right across the back wall of the indoor pitch at Auchenhowie in the big kind of white letters on blue, and they've just put his head in between it, so it says Ange Ut. Ange Ut. We call me go at Nottingham Forest have really turned on Ange Postecoglou. I thought that was quite bitter, but that's one each in terms of the visual metaphors, the visual messages around managers, old firm managers, ex or soon to be ex. But I never go too early. I never go too early when it comes to sacking managers. It's such a massive move for Rangers at any time, particularly when they've invested so much money alongside this one, as if it's all part of the plan that he's putting forward for rebuilding the first team. But it's just always a colossal move, and you've got to make sure you understand why you're doing it. And we're getting, I fear we're getting too used to sacking managers, but my line all season has been that it doesn't look or feel like it's sacking time yet, and that has been my line all season because we've been wanting to sack him all season. So far, it's only a month after the end of the transfer window, but that's not how people see it. It's gone way beyond results because we've been having runs of horrendous results before Russell Martin arrived. No, we lost, was it 5-6 in a row? Five games in the trot. We lost at Ibrox for the first time in our history last season. That was under both Barry and Philip Clement, and people wanted Barry to stay, and I myself the other night was joining in the wee kind of crowd of people giving, Philip Clement would do well in Europe. You're no any good at Rangers until you've gone. No, people were hysterical about Cyril Dessers last season and the season before, the way they're now hysterical about Russell Martin, and it started happening the other night. Cyril Dessers would have put away a few of the chances against Sturm. Got shut up, stop it, just don't stop it. I think they still want Todd Cantwell back, some of us, and the thing that gets me, is usually there comes a point in time, my main rubric for judging a manager, whether it is time for him to be sacked, is the team don't look like they know what they're doing anymore. But I think the whole thing, they're not playing for him, that's overblown. It's the team just don't look like they can play for him anymore. It's just got to that certain point. Now, that doesn't really apply to Russell Martin because his MO is to destroy the team, is the structure, and bring in a super complex. Apparently, it's going to blow everybody away when it kicks in, and it did do it Southampton. It did do it Swansea. He's going to bring in this system that necessitates the team going backwards. So they're supposed to look shite at the beginning of Russell Martin's reign. So that, as far as I'm concerned, everything's on course just now. The plan is working. It's just in that first phase, and we're getting towards the time that the second phase needs to really start kicking in. And there is ways you can say it has been slowly kicking in, if you want to look at it a certain way. But so that doesn't really apply. This thing of the team just don't look like they know what they're doing, because they haven't from the moment he's come in the door. But that was the plan. That was his stated plan. That's his MO. Russell Martin was here to complicate things. He was here to make us, so kind of sophisticated, ultimately so sophisticated that it demanded we look clueless as a team for 2 or 3 matches. But what I forgot was the companion metric or rubric or straightforward sign that usually goes along with that. I'd forgotten that there's also that thing where you look at the manager and you think he's got to go because he started saying things that just almost, they don't make sense. They're kind of embarrassing. They show a massive disconnect between what he thinks should be happening and what the fans know what should be happening. I don't mean, we should be winning every game 4-0 in the manager. That's the manager being realistic enough to know that that's not possible. That's not a condemnation. That's not a criticism. I just mean when you start getting things like, for example, Giovanni van Bronckhorst. I remember being in the main stand that day where we had just after 94 minutes of the horseshoe, we'd equalised against Livingston. I think maybe 5 minutes to go or something. We'd equalised against Livingston at Ibrox. And he's out in the technical area and he's turning to the crowd going, Jack, come on. Like, it was like he imagined everybody would be on board with him at that point in time. There would be a surge. And we believe in you, Gio. And he didn't realise he was losing us. And that, thinking that an equaliser against Livingston was worth celebrating. was no. That I just thought it's no. That was worse, probably more telling than being 3-0 down to Celtic at Parkhead at half time twice within the space of a few months. But it was Michael Beale, his whole thing about we can't quite get the ball out of our own box, and we can't quite get it into the opposition box, as if that was like a tactical observation that we would find really interesting, and that would increase our trust in him. He'd said a few things, Michael Beale, you just thought, it's no really, not the overcomplication, what he's trying to do against Celtic, when Celtic were kind of on the ropes when he turned up at Ibrox at the beginning of what would be his final season. He never got a full season anyway, but he started saying things. You just thought, no, Michael, you don't understand what the job requires. And Philip Clement kind of patently not understanding what the Scottish Cup means to Rangers and what going out the Scottish Cup to a lower league side means to Rangers. That press conference, watching it and just seeing him kind of giving it, that was bad, thinking, but it's not, you could see, we can't see the face of the press pack. We can hear what they're saying, but you could see him scanning them and taking the questions, which were more accusations than questions, and realising in that moment, and it was the fact that you were seeing, he only realised in that moment what the Scottish Cup meant to Rangers and what that defeat meant to us, that he suddenly had to start acting. Basically, he swore. He said, "Fuck" or "shit" or something. He said, and he was like, "Yeah, it's fucking terrible," or "it's shit," and it was just painful. It was like that time. What were they called? The guy, the idiot that's on GMTV. Him and his wife were. No, they were their own television programme. Is it Richard Medley? Richard Medley was on TFI Friday and he said, "Yeah, shit, man, fuck it." Oh, Richard Medley's swearing. Yeah, just like an idiot, an absolute prat. And that's what Philip Clement sounded like. Yeah, I'm going to swear here to show that I really get it, understand. Too late. We clocked you, mate. We clocked you. You don't understand. I know that in Belgium they only brought in a national cup competition so you could qualify for Europe. They only brought it back so you could qualify for it. You get a team into European competition when the Cup Winners' Cup come along. But that was just no. And I think with Russell Martin, the abuse he's taken is so biblical, and what he's trying to achieve. Have made his kind of weirder comments or incongruous kind of demeanour understandable at best sometimes, and inexplainable at worst, and he might be mentally and spiritually gone already by what's happening to him in the media and at the hands of the Rangers support. But I think last Sunday, coupled with Thursday night, his post-match interviews, he was far too positive last Sunday after what happened at Livingston. For him to even be celebrating the winner, that's the problem. It's a difficult balance. You don't want a manager who doesn't care that his team has scored. You want him to have passion. You want to have motivation. The manager, that's a minimum requirement really for the job. But it just didn't chime at all. It didn't even chime in a kind of shut up Rangers fans who've been bothering me, get it Rooney, because Václav Černý and Cyril Dessers have told us to do that in past seasons, and we've been like, fair dues. Right enough. We're giving you a hard time and you have to score, or we're going to shut it for a wee while, give you another wee chance. It wasn't even like he was turning and going, Rooney's have won the game, in the heat of the moment, and then kind of be backtracked on it. It was like he was genuinely thrilled that and it was, it's just worth celebrating. It's like, it's no really, And then on Thursday night, I felt the mentality thing, which he seems to have misspoken, picked the wrong word really, to express how he meant, but also the kind of negativity and slightly going back to maybe lambasting the team too much. I don't know. It's given me doubts. It's like he's too up after a win last Sunday, and he was too down or too kind of nasty. I don't know. It doesn't feel right. It feels that maybe he's definitely on the cusp. I can see it, and I think his interviews, say with Sky yesterday, and he was somebody. First of all, they said, "Oh, so you got a problem with the mentality of the team," because that was the main takeaway from that post-match presser. The post-match presser on Thursday night, both the TNT interview with Matt Smith, the fellow, which went horribly wrong. I don't think Matt Smith was even giving him that hard of a time. He just said he'd heard Russell Martin saying basically that Sturm Graz hadn't opened us up from open play in the first half, which is patently not true. Even off the top of my head, I can think of that one time they had a couple of 1-2s down our left-hand side and played the ball into the box, and Jack Butland had to get down at his near post to kind of palm the ball across the face of the goals. That was certainly open play. So Matt Smith, I think even you would agree that he did create chances from open play, and he just kind of lost that a wee bit. Not in a cracking up sort of way, but it got a bit ratty. And Matt Smith started going for him, and there was plenty to go for, but he does that thing. I've heard him saying it before. But he's like, "I just told you that. I just said you that." And this is the thing. This is why I can't quite decide with Russell Martin, and why a lot of the stuff being said about him is only a feeling. It's only been expressed in a negative way because we're not winning enough. We're not playing as well as we want anywhere like as well as we want Rangers to be playing just now. Alex Ferguson, Jim McLean, Walter, and all that. All the moments where they're properly downright aggressive with interviewers and all that. But that was, own them. Quite as part of the game. Get in there, put them in their place, sort it out. Manage the media that kind of way as well. When you get beat, be aggressive about it. Show me a bad loser and I'll show you a loser. We admire it all, but it's because the guys at that point in time, their legend was almost confirmed, so they could do no wrong. And I think there's a lot of that going on with Russell Martin just now. We're just interpreting everything he does negatively when a lot of it's quite understandable. But he says it's a mentality problem. We're not playing the way we should do on their free kick. We're not as sharp as we should be. We're not. And throw-ins as well. So basically 2 goals that we conceded. And we should score when we have create that many chances, create the many chances we did in the second half. And Matt Smith kind of pushes him on that point and said, you only gave up chances from set pieces. I think there was chances from open play, and he's saying, I just said it's a mentality thing. We're really aggressive with the substitutions. Rather than chasing the game, he didn't like Matt Smith saying you're chasing the game in the second half, as we clearly were. Just being aggressive with the substitutions. It's not a technical, tactical problem. We have to change the mentality, which in the second half was brilliant, because we were just all-out attack second half. But it's like he was putting too much emphasis on the fact that it wasn't his fault. They just switched off. Nothing I can do about that. Whereas that is actually a problem for the manager, for the head coach. And in the presser, I saw the quick 4-minute video that Rangers Review put up of the actual presser itself in the stadium after that on Thursday night. He was saying it was poor and soft goals that we lost, and we're just not alive. We're just not awake, basically, just not sharp enough. Which then becomes he's frustrated with the mentality of the group. He says that again, but we created a lot because we have a mountain to climb in the second half, and it's frustrating to come away with nothing. We created a lot, but couldn't put the ball back in the net. Basically, he kind of stonewalls a journalist who asks him why they keep conceding the same kind of goals. And he's like, I don't think we've conceded a goal from a shy before, have we? We conceded a goal from a throw-in so far. And you could hear the guy almost saying, "You've conceded so many, mate, that I've lost track." So far this season already, it's barely October, and you ask me to remember every goal you've conceded. But someone there doesn't do their job. He says he takes a wee kind of pause in that press, and he's, someone doesn't do their job. And he has a go at Chermiti. He mentions Chermiti for not being stronger, and when Tav is the throw-in for the first goal, when Tav's thrown the ball to him up the line, and he talks about there being space, but we've left a big gap in the box. So that's John Souttar, and I don't know whether he's trying to make it as obvious as possible who he's calling out, or he's saying he's trying to kind of cover for them by not mentioning names. It's difficult. Everything's just kind of in the balance just now with Russell Martin. And in that interview today, I saw it today. It's the guy says to him straight away, from the guy from Sky at Auchenhowie, says to him, "You're talking this mentality thing." He said, "Well, it depends on how you define language," which is a really clunky construction, kind of reflexively. It's a really clunkily put together sentence. It depends on how you define language. It depends on how you basically you interpret what I was saying. He's basically saying I worded it poorly the other night, which football people are prone to do. They're not public speakers, or they're not their chosen profession isn't public speaking. It's something they're forced to do. But I think he's maybe tried to sound too clever. He's basically just trying to say concentration, the mentality, their brain wasn't switched on properly. They weren't sharp enough in the head. They should be marking up better at that shy to ourselves, and they weren't paying attention at the free kick, which led to the second goal. And nobody was paying attention at that free kick, which led to Sturm Graz's second goal in that first half. So, because the guy had started off by saying to him, "Well, mentality," he cited that the other night, and that's not a quick fix problem, is it? He realises people think that the whole squad's mentality is gone, if you take a literal interpretation of what he said. But he's like, "No, I didn't mean that," basically. He doesn't express it like that. He looks angry, he looks under pressure, he looks annoyed, he looks a bit depressed, Russell Martin. But maybe that's what we need him to be, The chat about the Thelwell and Stewart, the guy from Sky asked him about Thelwell and Stewart getting cornered by a couple of Bears Angry Bears or Performatively Angry Bears or whatever in the hotel lobby, and he's like, everything's just heightened at the moment, not just in football, but in the UK in particular at the moment. And I'm thinking, oh, why? That's why so many Bears hated you before you even arrived. That's a bit left wing. You're talking about stuff that's going on, that's actually is going on. That's a bit too real. We don't want to know about that. We want that kind of, win or shut it. No interpretation, no woke stuff like, context and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, yeah, you maybe opened a can of worms there, big fella. Hopefully not. But I also just think you fucking tell them. You tell them, Russell, as the UK as a whole, it's everybody. There's people protesting all over the place about football when there's so many things going on that probably deserve protesting. I don't like people of different colour. I don't want them. People don't think the same as me. Get out of my country. We're all doing that just now, so it's a bit. Things are a bit fraught, and I think people are getting to the stage where they think that's the only way to react to any setback is to go fucking mental. It's the Fitbit, get it in context. Yeah, I saw stuff today about, as he mentioned in that interview with Sky, Russell Martin, he was just trying to get the players back into the hotel to get to their beds to get rest. Must be great. No, must be great. Tell me, we go to the hotel and get rest. What about us that have got our work to go to? And, we're spending thousands watching Rangers. Sorry, I'm being really cruel. But it's like, that is their work. That's the work you want them to do. They need to get rest. They're playing fit. They need to have every bit of energy they possibly can. That's him trying to be professional, trying to be the manager you want him to be. It's everything he says is slagging. It's a slagging arrives, and half the time it just doesn't apply at all. It's concentration, it's mentality. So he's linking these two concepts. Talking about Chermiti not getting to the ball on time. But I just feel as if it's getting too hard a time as far as I'm sorry. I can feel myself being completely ratty in a way that's insulting to other Rangers fans, and I don't want to do that because I know I talk as much garbage as everybody else. But I say Sunday and Thursday, these interviews, and his interview yesterday with Sky again kind of slightly concerned me. He maybe doesn't get it, or he's kind of just wobbling so badly as a person right now under this pressure. Maybe he's lost a bit of perspective himself. It's such a kind of febrile atmosphere in the stands, and the media is constantly stoking it as any match for the last 2 months been prefaced by anything other than how it could push the Rangers fans over the edge about Russell Martin. You can't, even the Old Firm game and that, even the Rangers fans are going to go mental if they lose a goal early on. We always go mental if we lose a goal early on. What are you talking about? Nobody want you to go really mental, going to cause a riot, going to attack them, something like that. Same with the Hearts game, same with everything. It's just been Russell Martin. You can't expect him, I suppose, to retain his poise in times like this. I don't know if anybody in British public life, other than the Prime Minister, is under this kind of pressure right now, this constant abuse coming out. And he's not get surrounded by security guards and stuff like that. He's just out there on that touchline himself while people are utterly despising him in a way that I think is just completely OTT. But the one thing that concerns me about his job and his suitability to it right now is the philosophy, sticking to the plan thing. He isn't sticking to his plan. We don't really know what his plan is, but it looks like he isn't sticking to it. The last few weeks, his kind of insouciance, his kind of chilled out reassurance that he sometimes displays in press conferences, which is cast as gaslighting and arrogance, when it's just a refusal to indulge hysteria. But it's a kind of reassurance of a man who knows his plan is coming together and will be brilliant by December. That's disappeared the last couple of weeks. I want him to look like he believes in whatever plan it is he's bringing. I'm happy to take on board the fact that it's going to take a while to kick in, that there's going to be setbacks, that it's going to take a few months. But if he looks like he doesn't even believe it anymore, and then what we're seeing on the park, we need to see from him. We need to have a kind of, as long as we can't see it in the park, we need to have a feeling that a plan is in development under the tutelage of coaches who can make it work. Now, I'm quite sure the plan doesn't involve us substituting a defender for a striker, or bringing on a striker for a defensive player every 5 minutes as we get towards the final whistle of a game in which we still require one goal to get a suitable result. But maybe that's just what teams do. It doesn't matter how Pep Guardiola, whoever, anybody, doesn't matter how your plan, all your different tactics and everything, they've all worked to perfection. You've got a team drilled to perfection, but there's going to be games you're going to be losing. You're going to just chuck the kitchen sink at it. And in many ways, I think it feels like he keeps kind of parking the plan. You know, with like St Mirren, we did it second half. Just get as many strikers and forward players on there as possible until we get that equaliser. He obviously did it at Livingston when they equalised last Sunday. He did it the other night for the entire second half. But it feels like he keeps kind of parking the plan to go back to merely playing better within a game. You know, the long-term plan for Rangers is how we're going to dominate Scottish football. That's going to have to go to the side again. I just have to win this game. I just have to get the draw that we need, or whatever. I just need to sort this out. He's like it's like Picasso going back, constantly having to go back to drawing the pigeons. They started off when he was a boy just drawing these pigeons really brilliantly. You know, he wants to go on with the abstraction and turn and, you know, get all cubist and what have you, and, you know, have women's, you know, noses coming out their necks and stuff like that. But he can't get doing it because he doesn't have one of the pigeons that really looks like a pigeon. That's what we. Why don't you just do another pigeon that looks like a photograph? It's so good, that pigeon. What is that you're trying to do there? You know, that's the thing that's going to make me a legend. You know, that's the brilliant thing. But to be honest, I feel like we are maybe gaslighting and bullying Russell Martin, and he's probably, I mean, the support and the existing players, and he's probably not getting the signings that he needs, not all in one summer anyway. But it's like Butland, Nico, and Tav have beaten him into submission, and we look more like Philip Clement's Rangers with every passing game. Yet Russell Martin, in doing this simultaneously, is proving that he's flexible. He's proven that he knows how to just throw a team out there that can just chase a goal and probably will get it. You know, but that's too vulgar. That's not going to work long term. We could probably draw every away game, win every home game 2-1. This isn't the league, except Celtic would scalp us home and away. And that's probably we could if he just went out and put out a 4-4-2 or something like that. This same kind of panic mode type of football. But he's obviously gone for something deeper and long term, much better than that. But I need proof, not victories. I just need proof that the job he was brought here to do is the one is the one he's still on. The way he was planning to do it is what he's still doing. We were told it would take time because it was so complex. That's why it'll eventually dazzle all our opponents. So we're on track. It is taking a lot of time, but we need to start seeing that it's. I need to see what the plan is. I need to see evidence of it. Just stick with the plan. Lose a few more games. You're going to get sacked. It's going to get unbearable. I can see why he might not be able to stick with his plan and just he's going to pack in the job because it's just becoming impossible for him, and not all because he's not good enough. It's going to be a tired team from Thursday, I would imagine. I don't know what the starting 11 is going to be tomorrow. I don't really care. We've got enough quality there. For example, you get Mo Diamandi. He's been suspended for Europe, so we didn't even play him last week either, just to kind of get the team set up for Thursday while we're playing at Livingston. So maybe get Diamandi straight back into the team there, give Conor Barron a rest. I hope Lyle Cameron's back training, so I hope he's ready to come on maybe as a substitute second half or something like that. Lyle Cameron. I want to see Chermiti again. I'm not sure his poor finishing can maybe put down to a lack of sharpness. He was definitely getting in the areas. He was definitely having a real effect. He was impressive the other night, after me wondering why the manager had put him in the team. But I think you could see it. He was impressive in everything except the finishing, but he was getting his shots away. He was getting a bit of bad service. The pitch was a bit choppy. He's away from home. He's just not played a lot of first-team football this season. So, excuse me, I think he's probably warming up to it and should have plenty of fitness in the tank. He's a young man as well. Chermiti, so I'd start with him up front again. I'm really interested to see whether Magoma continues to be punished or maybe just rested as left back, and we get Max Aarons back in at right back, so Tav can go into centre half and Derek Cornelius can get to left back tomorrow. That'd be interesting to see, as long as Derek Cornelius is playing, because he's fast becoming a kind of bulwark of the team. But largely, I just want the international break, the energy we're going to get from even though a lot of our players are away in international duty, just it's away from Rangers, it's away from the hellscape that is Rangers just now. So just siphon off some of that energy you're going to get from not having to play for Rangers for a couple of weeks and get it into that performance, and then take the muscle memory of that all hands to the pump second half on Thursday and just go out there and take it out on Falkirk. I want us to be sharp and start both halves like we mean it. Start both halves of football like we mean it, Rangers. That would be a change. Russell Martin is Graeme Souness, really, isn't he? When you think about it, he just doesn't have Walter Smith. He doesn't have his Walter Smith yet. Just like Michael Corleone, needs to eventually get Alneri in to be. See, you've got your Luca Brasi. He needs his Walter Smith, does Russell Martin, maybe. And Souness had the playing career, yes, but Walter didn't. He was extra hard, Walter, because he had to fight for even just getting a living out of football. He had to fight even just to make a living out of football. He didn't. He just go about breaking the jaws and kicking the throat of anybody who stopped him getting absolutely everything out of football, as Souness did. Russell Martin. It's Graeme Souness played for the English boys, the five-a-sides over at the Albion on a Friday when he was manager. They would have the five-a-sides on the Friday before the game, and it was Scotland against England. And as Ali McCoist and Derek Ferguson, that said, used to piss them off that Souness would play with the English. He would play to make up the numbers, he was saying, but no, he thought, no, he didn't. So this was a guy who's ashamed almost to be Scottish, eh? No, he captained Scotland. And he never tried harder than when he was playing against England. He was absolutely vicious in games against England, was Graeme Souness. But I think he was trying to prove the point that he was every bit as good as that was a place he wanted to play. But Russell Martin was born in England. So it's like kind of, a bit happily played for Scotland. They learned Flower of Scotland in the bogs, in the toilets before a game. He didn't even know the national anthem. He just knew he wasn't good enough to play for England, so he got a chance to play for Scotland because his dad being born in Irvine. That's fine. That's great. So if you're one of the kind of folk who hate Scotland because you've confused the SNP with Scotland in the way that the SNP wanted you to, you should like the fact that Russell Martin has kind of pissed all over. In his own way, it could be interpreted as Russell Martin peeing all over the Saltire, really, the same way that Graeme Souness might have done. Speedboats and budgie smugglers off the island of Capri for Souness. It's Lucy Pinder and trendy trainers for Russell Martin. He could be heading for an international break, which lets the board sack Russell Martin. It could be letting him be sacked Gio. So international break, take their time. I'm going to get this. Just delay it to international break. Doesn't matter what happens at Falkirk. Russell Martin is for the sack, but I hope they don't, because all that's happening is we're recalling the good old days wrongly and totally forgetting everything we were complaining about last season, 5 months ago, I'm talking about. And man babies are going up to their directors in hotel lobbies and for some reason wanting to touch them and wanting to explain that they've just worked out that spending money supporting the football team might be a depreciating asset. It's this thing, I want to be guaranteed that I'll keep spending all this money, and we're going, you don't have to spend the money, you don't have to go, you don't have to watch us. You know what I mean? Everybody's trying to be kind of hardcore and hard case, but nobody's hard enough to kind of suck it up and suffer for another season. I just hope Russell Martin is. I hope he's hard enough to at least keep trying and keep believing in his own plan. If you're going to go out, you might as well go out being yourself. But we could go third by winning 5-0 tomorrow, I think. It depends what happens in the rest of the games being played this weekend. But mostly, though, just keep up the kind of under-the-radar winning form. This is if we're supposed to just suddenly start kind of building up, but it starts really slowly. We go backwards, and then we just start kind of, before you know it, we're getting a wee run together. Well, we haven't won 2 games in a row. We've won 5 of the 16 competitive games we've played, which is appalling for Rangers, but that proves that we have definitely gone backwards. That's part of the plan. But if you were to win, we did win against Hibs. It's kind of like, that's the way we beat a top flight Scottish team for the first time. It wasn't a league game, but we beat a team who's in the league that we're in. Okay, it's a League Cup though. So the following, we get beat half Genk, so we haven't won 2 in a row, but we go to Livingston and we won our first league game of the season, but also it's 2 successive wins against top flight sides, not domestically. Oh, I see what's happening. And then we haven't won again, we haven't won 2 games in a row because we get beat in Graz during the week. But if we were to win tomorrow, then that's 3 successive wins against top flight opposition, 2 successive league, and this is what you do. It's slowly under the radar becomes, move ourselves into the top half of the league if that's not too much to ask for. But I would go with the guy who has to learn his trade at the bottom and fight his way up, not the one who started at Spurs and got MPs involved to help him even then. I mean, Graeme Souness was always a superstar, and that's what we love about him, is his star quality. And Rangers have always been a team of star. I just hate that we completely desert or hate anybody who has to come in between times, because Rangers don't have the money or the sense or the acuity, whatever, to provide us with the stars that we need. Bobby Brown or the Iron Curtain, fantastic. These guys are all legends. They're part of what I love about Rangers. And Graeme Souness, I adore to this day. But I think we sometimes don't understand what we actually need. The Cyril Dessers thing's a case in point. He wasn't scoring every chance he got, but he scored enough, and it's only now that he's away. We realise that when we don't have the money, or the kind of impetus to get the superstars in every position, well, then we need somebody to go in there and do the business. And we do nothing but make it worse for them if we just keep slagging them for not being perfect. Maybe Russell Martin does have to go, but that boy's got nothing to apologise for as far as I'm concerned. If I'm a star fucker, or if I want an after dinner speaker, or I just want to sit and adore somebody, maybe even slaver over them, then Graeme Souness is absolutely the man. But if I want a chat about life, if I need consolation, if I need help, if I want someone who gets it, who understands what I've come from, I would want to be talking to Russell Martin. And I want to talk to Russell Martin. I also want our first clean sheet away from home since we got a clean sheet at the home of another side in dark blue, who were on their way to the division from which Falkirk have just come. I'll talk to you after the game tomorrow, folks.